Hello and welcome to Power Platform Answers, the channel where we answer your questions about the Power Platform. In today's episode, we're going to be tackling a question about working with unusual field types in SharePoint from Power Apps. But before we dive into that, let's highlight 4 things that we're focused on this week. First, customer managed encryption keys for Power Apps are now generally available. This means that you'll have a lot more control over your data security, ensuring that only you can access your encrypted data in Power Apps. This is the latest of the bag of goodies that we get from managed environments, so you will have to use managed environments. But they'll be very valuable to highly secured industries like healthcare, medical, banking, etc. Just make sure that you don't lose your encryption key because they really are private encryption keys, and if you go that way, you just need to make sure that you have them securely stored. Secondly, the new explaining a formula feature in Copilot is here in Power Apps. This feature demystifies complex formulas, making it easier for you to understand and optimize your Power FX code. Have you ever had a formula that's really long and you need to figure out what it does, maybe in an app that somebody else has written? This is going to help both new makers as well as old timers to quickly understand what a formula is doing, like when you're working on an application that somebody else in your company made and you don't know what it does. On a similar note, Power Automate Desktop Copilot now can generate a description of a flow for you. At my company, we've been using generative AI for a while to document flows, even flows from competitors like UiPath to understand what they do. And having this in Power Automate Desktop will be amazing. This integration of generative AI and Power Automate Desktop simplifies the process of supporting and understanding the flow without the need to manually inspect them. So think if you got a bunch of big flows and you have new people coming in, need to understand them. It is a pain for them to have to open them up, read through, probably miss something, where now we can hit one button and get a very detailed description. And then finally, the new SAP ODATA connector is available for preview. Say goodbye to the SAP.NET connector. This new connector streamlines your interaction with SAP systems, making integration smoother and more efficient. You still do need the on-premise data gateway, as many SAP features are not exposed to the internet, but generally speaking. But this will make working with SAP from Power Apps and Power Automate much easier. And all these enhancements are exciting because they represent significant strides in usability, security, and efficiency for makers. And they will save people a lot of headache who are supporting complex apps and automations. Now let's get to our main question. And that question is, how do you patch a hyperlink column in SharePoint from a Power App? Oh, great, a complex SharePoint question. Working with unusual column types like the person or the hyperlink column are very challenging sometimes. I think I'm going to need reinforcements on this question. I think I will push the Daniel Christian button.
Hey Joe, thanks for forwarding that question over to me. I'm here to help. All right, so this hyperlink column, I categorize those as one of the complex apps because there's this hyperlink, there's this choice type, lookup column, manage metadata. These all of them fall in that complex column type buckets. And there's a reason for that. One of the things about the hyperlink one is that it's actually got 2 parts in it. It's got a title and a hyperlink, the link. But when you go and do it through Power Apps, you can only go and do it as one way, which means your link will become the title and the hyperlink. And to really explain that to you, I'm going to show it as a demo. And I'll also show you a workaround for that. So check this out. Let's go to our SharePoint list. This is one of my test SharePoint list sites. I'll go to the site contents. In the site contents, I'm actually going to go and create a new list. And I'll call this list as Joe's test list. Description as is. I'll remove it from the navigation just for now. I'll go and click on create. So once it gets created, 5 columns are automatically created in SharePoint, at least the 5 that you can see. So I'll show you what that means. I go to click on the settings, list settings, and here you go. You got the title, modified, created, created by, and modified by. These are the 5 that I was talking about. But for the sake of this demo, I need to create another one, and that's going to be our hyperlink one. So I'll click on the create column, and I'm just going to call this as link. Come over here on the bottom for the type, I'll select hyperlink or picture. It gets updated, and you can see that the format URL by default is hyperlink. I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm going to click on OK. So it's going to redirect us with the settings. I'll go one more step outside. And now we've got our title and we've got our links. The SharePoint list, which is our backend data source, is good. Now let's switch gears and go to the Power Apps Canvas app. So now I'm going to click on apps, and on the apps over here, I got to click on new app. I'm going to start with the page design. On the right side, there is the blank canvas automatically selected for tablet. Perfect, that's what I want. So I'll click on the blank canvas, and I'm going to name the app similar to what I have for the list, but I'll do that in a minute, all right? So I'll do that later. I'm going to click on skip for now. And what I'm going to do is make the connection to the SharePoint list first. I'm going to click on data, click on add data. On that search, I'm going to do a search for SharePoint, select it. I've already got a connection done, so I'll select that one. The site was benefits. As you can see, it's benefits, so I'll select the site. And the list was called as Joe's test list. Just to verify, yep, it's Joe's test list. Click on connections. Okay, so all the plumbing work has already been completed. What I'm going to do is now go ahead and add two controls, which are the test type controls. Click on the insert, and this is going to be the text input. Bring that down over here, make it a little bigger. Go to our tree preview. Let me rename this one to call that as a title. And then in the property section, I'll remove the default, which is text input. But in the hint, I'll say add a title. Perfect. Click on the insert and I go add in another text input. Just put that down a little bit over here, extend that a little bit nice and big because this is going to be for a URL. The actual control name, I'm going to call that as link. On the right for the default, I'll remove the default text input, but for the hint, I'll say add a link. Perfect. So we got this. Now the last thing I need to do is go ahead and now add my button right over here. So this is going to be my submit button, right? And for the text which says submit, go ahead and change that over to submit. All right, all the work is done over here. Now let's go and add in our patch function. So the first patch function that I go and do, I'll start typing in patch. The IntelliSense already populates me here. And this is how I do my patch. Is the first thing is I go ahead and now open up the patch function, select the list. I'll click on the comma and I go one step below. Then I got to click on defaults. Because in the defaults, I got to go and select what's my default list, which is the exact same list. Open them up, comma. I go down and I open up my curly brackets. So that comes in, and then I'll go ahead and click on attachments, where I get outside, go 2 steps down and click on the curly brackets, click on that, and we are done. And we've got our basic framework ready for the patch function. Now, what I want to do is go ahead and add my title and my link. So here it is. I'm going to type in title. And the IntelliSense already says that you've got something called title. So I'll select it. And the control that I have over here is actually my title text. And that's why it helps to actually just rename it, because the IntelliSense will help me find it. There you go. I just typed in title. It's telling me there's a title text input. Select that. Click on the dot and text, comma, shift enter, comma, enter. And the next one is going to be link. If I type it in, IntelliSense gives me the link. And this is going to be of a link text input dot text. Once I click on it, once I click outside, there's no squiggly lines, there's no errors. I'm not seeing any errors over here. So our patch function is successfully completed. I'll go and do a quick preview test. So I'll type this in, preview test. So I'll go and type in as test1. And for the sake of consistency, I'll call this as https://www.test1.com. Click on submit, and I can see those ants marching. In fact, that went through so fast, but verification is coming with the SharePoint list. Usually it loads over here by itself, but if you don't see it, you can click on refresh, and there you go. You see the title, which is test1. That is what we typed in, and then we also put in the URL. You see this link over here? That is the URL. But if I select it, and if I go on the edit, you see that the link actually comprises of 2 columns. And just so I can show you, I'll delete this off. This is which says enter URL. And if I delete this off, this is which says alternative text, which is what is the description. So to prove a point, I'll just cancel out over here. Let's put in a new item from the SharePoint list. So I'll click on this section and I'll call this as my test2. And when the test2, the actual link, that is going to be http://www.test2.com. And over here, I'm going to say this is a nice site, all right? So I click on save. What you see happen in this scenario is that the description actually became the text showing up. but it automatically has the link to it, the hyperlink to it. See, we were not able to accomplish this using this style over here. And the same thing happens when you even go and use an edit form with the submit form function. The exact same thing happens. You only see this one column over, you only see this one control over here, and you click on submit, it just comes up over here. All right, so if you are fine with this first option where the link and the description is the exact same thing, then you are done. However, if you want to try to achieve this second scenario where the description is actually just text, but the description also has the hyperlink on it, then keep watching more, because now we've got to go ahead and leverage Power Automate and put in an additional step in our Power Apps Canvas app. Here we are in our Canvas app, and now what I got to do is almost like a two-step process. First, we go ahead and patch only the title. I'm going to go ahead and now comment out this link piece over here, and I'll remove that comma so this error goes away. But we're going to go ahead and patch the title, and I need to get the ID of that SharePoint list. And we're going to achieve that over here. So I'm going to go ahead and now call that as a set. In my set, I'm going to call that as my var response, close it, and then I'm going to have to go ahead and now end another brackets over here. So once this is patched, all the information which is patched, including the ID, it will get saved in this variable called var or variable response. Now let's also go ahead and create our Power Automate flow. So I'm going to come into my Power Automate over here, and I'm going to click on add flow, and this one is going to be create a new flow. And I like that inside the Power Apps Canvas app, this pop-up window comes up. I'm going to go ahead and say create from blank, and this flow name, I'm going to give it something, Joe's flow. Now in the Power Apps Canvas app, I actually need 3 inputs. First one is going to be, I'm going to call that as ID. Second one is going to be the URL. Now I can call that as link, or I can call it as URL. I'm going to go and select URL for this one. I'm going to call that as URL. And then here is going to be the actual description of that URL. So I'm going to call this as description. All right. So these are actual inputs that we're going to put in. Now let's go and start working on the SharePoint side. So I'm going to go and do a search for SharePoint. And in my SharePoint, I'm going to search for this. I'm going to select this action called send an HTTP request to SharePoint. All right, so here we need to go and now populate these fields. So the first one is site address. I click on the site address, and we know what that site is. It's the benefits, so that's easy. Select that. Method one, the default is get, but we need post, because we need to actually go ahead and post some information into that SharePoint site. So that's the by post. The URI, they've actually given the example over here, is that this is an example of the URI. So let's go ahead and replicate that. This is what I went and pasted. I literally just copied and pasted what they showed over here, which is _API/web/lists/get by title. Now I open up a curve bracket, a single quote, and I've got to put in my list name. My list name is called as Joe's test list. So here I'm going to type. I'm going to type in Joe's test list, single quotes, close the bracket, and now I'm going to open up forward and type in items, open up another bracket, and here I got to put in this ID. And now I close the bracket. This has to be correct. There can be no typos. You cannot make any mistake over here in the SharePoint list. Get the exact same name that you see over here, right? So we've got that. Now the URI part is completed. What we got to do next is add 4 headers. First one is this, content-type. It's one word. And for its value, go ahead and paste this one. It's called application/JSON semicolon OData equals verbose. All right. Now we're going to need this one on the bottom as well. So I'm just going to go and paste it. But its key is going to be accept. Literally what you see, it's accept. Next one is merge, and next one is x-http-method, and its value is going to be merge, and I put it all caps over here. And then the final one is if.match, and its value is going to be asterisk. Now we're asterisk. These are the 4 headers that you absolutely need. Make sure that you're not having any typos over here, because it's important that you get this correct. And we've already gone and put in some work over here, so I'm going to go and click on save. So we're making sure that it is actually saving. And it went ahead and closed the window, but it's actually saving the flow over here. So we need to go back into our Power Automate. So click on this ellipsis, click on edit. a pop-up window comes up so we can continue moving forward. All right, let me expand this. And now we got to start putting in some work in our body. Now in our body, you're going to use a lot of curly brackets. And this is what I mean. Here's one curly brackets. I'm going to hit enter a few times and I'm going to close it. Make sure you get that consistent because I'm using a lot of these. Now we're going to start putting in some of our body. So the first one is double quotes and then 2 underscores, not just 1, 2 underscores like that. 1, 2. And the text you got to type in is metadata. You are definitely going to need this at least twice. So now I go and close my double quotes, do a colon, do a full colon, not a semicolon, a full colon. Open up another curly brackets. Make sure it's curly brackets, not the box brackets, curly brackets. And then double quotes and type in the word type. And then end with the double quotes, a full colon, another double quotes, and type in the SP, capital S, capital P, dot data, dot, and data. And now you got to go ahead and put in again the SharePoint list, which is Joe's test list, and end it with list item. This ending list item is absolutely needed for this section of the metadata of type. You have to put that in. It's not a section of the name over here because you can see the name is just Joe's test list. And even though I have ending with list, you still got to go and put in list item. And I can click on double quotes and I'll go ahead and I'll close it with the curly brackets. And I'm going to click on comma. And I can do a shift enter to get to the next line. So now I can go and now type in the link. This link is actually coming from this link over here. All right. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to type in, make sure I'm in the right place. I'm going to type in link, open another double quotes, colon, shift enter. And here we're going to open up our own other curly brackets again. So I'm going to make sure I do it correctly. Opened it, closed it. And the first line I want you to type in is this. I went and pasted it in. I went and pasted it in so I can walk you through that. This underscore, it's 2 underscores, metadata, and then the type sp.field URL value. Type the syntax exactly verbatim as you see over here. This is hard-coded syntax that you need to put in this body as is verbatim. Literally do it just the way it is. Do not make any mistakes because you're going to need that. And then after that, I put in the comma and I go to the next line. And now we start populating the 2 fields that we need for that hyperlink. And remember what it was. It was the description and the link. So I'm going to go and first put in the description. I'm going to actually type this in, description, close the double quotes, put in the full column, put in the full colon, open up another double quotes, and my description is coming from here. It's coming directly from that Power App. So I'm going to click on that. And now I'm going to close the double quotes. Click on comma, shift, enter, open up another double quotes. And we need the URL, double quote, double quote, colon, open up the double quote and get in the URL. Sometimes the cursor may move all the way to the top. Make sure you bring it back again towards the end of the URL and do a double quote. We are done. This is basically it. This is how we can go ahead and put in the description and the URL. So what I'm going to do now is go and click on save. It is saving. It has been saved. And if it didn't automatically close, you're good. You can actually go and X out over here. Yeah. So now in the Canvas app, we just got to put the finishing touches. Over here, back in our Power Effects, I can go ahead and put in a semicolon. And in my semicolon, start searching for Joe's flow. Right over here, I'm going to put in Joe's flow. And there you go. IntelliSense picked up Joe's flow.run. And if I open up the brackets, it is telling me that you need 3 different things. And it's pretty neat because right now that text is highlighted and it's telling me that is of a type ID. So I don't even have to go back inside over here in the ellipses, click on edit and try to remember, okay, what is it that the first one that I put over there? Was it ID? Was it description? Because it's showing me the first one is ID, second one is URL, third one is description. Because there's 3 of them, it might be easy to remember, but if there's a whole bunch of them, it gets a little confusing. But don't worry, Power Effects and Power Apps actually helps you. So the first thing I'm going to go back in and I'm going to go back in, I'm going to delete that and bring that back again. And it's telling me the first one is text, but it is ID. And that ID comes from my var response.id right there. I'll click on comma, and now it's telling me, hey, you need the second text. It is of a type URL. My URL is coming from this section over here, which is of the type URL right there, link text. So I'm going to come back in, click on that, and this is going to be of a link text, input text, comma, and now it's telling me it's of a description. Now guess what? I haven't added my description. So let's go and quickly do that. All right, so I'm going to go and now move this one down a little bit. Do this, Control C, Control V, putting that down here. The actual control name, I'm going to go and change that to description. And its hint, I will say add a description, so it's just consistent. And now in our submit, go back in, and then the last one over here I need is description text dot text, and now I go and close it. So I've successfully gone and given it all three things, but the ultimate place is doing a test. So here you go. I've got 3. So if I just make sure, yep, I'm going to go and put that as 3, test 3, and I'm going to put my description. So this is a helpful website for test 3, right? Click on that. Click on submit. I can see the ants marching over here. But if I come to the SharePoint list, and if I don't already see it, I'm going to refresh it. And there you go, test 3, all right? The item came in, but here you go. Now we can actually see only the text which is coming in. But if I click on it, but if I hover over it, that's actually the link, which is taking you to an absurd website because it's not really existing. But you get the point. In addition, if you go to Power Automate Flow, see, this is the one we just made 3 minutes ago. If I click on it, you should see that a flow 39 seconds ago ran successfully. So as a quick recap, specifically for that hyperlink type of complex columns, if you're fine with just the URL, the actual link URL showing up as the link and the description, then your edit form is just fine, or your first patch function is just fine. However, if you want to separate it where it actually shows the description, which is text, and the text has the link on it, then you've got to go through this process of going ahead and actually building a combination of the first patch, getting the ID, and then using a flow, a backend flow, and use that SharePoint HTTP action to separate the two, the link and the description. Back to you, Joe.
And that wraps up our deep dive into patching the hyperlink column in SharePoint from Power Apps. A huge thank you to Daniel Christian for your insightful walkthrough. If you found Daniel's tips to be helpful, please follow him on YouTube at DanielChristian19. He's got one of the best channels out there. You will not be disappointed. He's got a ton of content. We hope that today's episode has shed some light on some of the intricacies of working with Power Apps and SharePoint, especially some of the most complex columns. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to explore on a future episode, please reach out. You can send your questions to powerplatformanswers@hitachisolutions.com, or you can leave a comment on the video, and we might feature your question in our next episode. Remember, whether you're dealing with unusual field types or you're just looking to enhance your Power Platform experience, we're here to help you navigate through all of it. So hit the subscribe button, share the podcast with your peers, and stay tuned for more great answers to your Power Platform questions. Until next time, keep powering through.